Welcome, everybody, to the American Independence Festival. I'm Julie Gilman. I'm a member of the Select Board and a state representative. John Taylor Gilman here has been the longest-serving governor of New Hampshire. Nobody's beat him yet. I want to welcome you to our town, and I'm going to give you a little bit of introduction about the reading of the Declaration of Independence. Okay, so you've been hearing around town, imagine it's 1776, and you've been hearing around town talk about King George and what he's doing. You've heard the grumblings in the tavern. King George has put too much upon us. He's demanded too much. Men are gathered in Philadelphia to plan and decide on a separation of the colonies from the royal government. But how does the news from far away get to you? Not on this. Word spread, a messenger arrives on horseback from Philadelphia, and we celebrate our Independence Day here in Exeter on the 16th, which is actually today, because it took 3 weeks to get up here from Philadelphia. So a horseback rider came in, announcing message from Philadelphia, and he handed it to John Taylor Gilman, who was a leading prominent citizen in the town, and the word was spread from house to house. John Taylor Gilman reads it to the gathering crowd. In an excerpt from The History of Exeter by Charles Bell, as soon as his hastily gathered audience had assembled, the youthful reader begins his grateful task. We can imagine with what bated breath all listened for the first time to that impressive statement of the causes which led America to take up arms. The clear tones in which the eloquent periods were enunciated never faltered until the masterly climax was reached, when the rush of patriotic feeling became too great for speech, and for a moment the reader was compelled to pause to regain the power of utterance. Often, as the charter of our liberties has been since repeated in Exeter, in times of national trial and national prosperity, it was never listened to with more devout thankfulness, greater faith, or more honest pride than on this, its first reading.
Good morning. I have here a dispatch from the Continental Congress in Philadelphia. It's dated 12 days ago, July 4th, 1776, and I'd like to read it to you this morning. The unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. He has refused his assent to laws the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained, and when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people, unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records, for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people. He has refused for a long time after such dissolutions to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers, incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without and convulsions within. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws of naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. He has effected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation, for quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury, for transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses, for abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies, for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments, for suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is, at this time, transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny, already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages and totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation. He has constrained our fellow citizens taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. He has excited domestic insurrections amongst us and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers, the merciless Indian savages whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince, whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant, is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting in our attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our emigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and consanguinity. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them, as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these states, that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as a free and independent state, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
First New Hampshire! First New Hampshire, take care. Halt! Sergeant, take care of the line, please. Thank you.
First New Hampshire, on me. To the front, march. Take care. Halt!
Follow me, sir. I'll lead you to the podium.
To the right, face.
Precinct Fireworks! Mr. President, General, First New Hampshire, shoulder fireworks! Mr. President, thank you, sir. General. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you great honor to present our President, George Washington, and former General John Stark of New Hampshire.
Well, gentlemen, it's great to see you again. It's been a while since Monmouth, New Jersey, but it's good to be in your company again. These gentlemen and I had some very interesting times down in New Jersey. This will be brief, folks. I just relish this opportunity to talk to people that are the citizens of these United Colonies. So I am honored to stand before you today as we celebrate our new nation. The love of liberty, so interwoven with every ligament of your hearts, is confirmed and fortified by your attendance today. The unity, that's unity of government, which constitutes you as one people, is also now dear to you and is the main pillar in the edifice of your real independence. Citizens by birth or by choice of a common country, that country has a right to concentrate your affections. You have in common cause fought and triumphed together. Common cause is not the focus of the ego or aspirations of an individual or minority. You work together with your neighbors and with the inhabitants of the other colonies to begin this experiment in a form of government called democracy, a government for the common good. The independence and liberty you possess are the work of joint councils and joint efforts of common dangers, sufferings, and successes. The efficacy and permanence of your union, a government for the whole, is indispensable. Sensible to this momentous truth, you have improved upon your first essay by the adoption of a constitution better calculated for an intimate union and management of your common concerns. So I carry to you today the hope that my country will never cease to view this union and its liberty with upright zeal, to support this union with kindness and fervent love. My fellow citizens, I urge you to support this free government through all of our mutual cares and labors and dangers. So I say to you, thank you very much for this opportunity to express my gratitude that you saw fit to put me in this office when you had so many other opportunities. Thank you very much.
First New Hampshire, Solar Frolics! First New Hampshire, present Frolics! Mr. President, you need my help, sir?
No, sir, we're going to be fine.
Okay.
But thank you. You're younger.
Oh, you want Sergeant, you take care of the band? Sir. I'm gonna escort you gentlemen.
Very good.
Okay, Mr. President.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Sergeant, thank you. General, sir. First, thank you, everyone. Show. Bye.
Left face. And counter march.
All right, sir.
Up first left.
You know what? How about there you go.
March.
Good day.